नमो नमो राघवाय नमो नमो अनीशं नमो नमो राघवाय नमो नमो अनीशं नमो नमो राघवाय नमो नमो अनीशं नमो नमो राघवाय शुकनुताय दीनबन्धवे शुकनुताय दीनबन्धवे सकललोकदया सिन्धवे शुकनुताय दीनबन्धवे सकललोकदया सिन्धवे नमो नमो राघवाय नागराज पालनाय नागराज पालनाय त्यागराज सेविताय नागराज पालनाय त्यागराज सेविताय नमो नमो राघवाय नमो नमो अनीशं नमो नमो राघवाय.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Namaskaram.
Now, welcome speech. Dear members, I welcome you all for this 60th meeting. This is our 60th meeting, and particularly I take pleasure in welcoming the new office bearers of the Alumni Association who were elected just 2-3 days ago, and in the AGM conducted on 24th. The files may change, but not the bandham, definitely. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Priyadarshana Jain, HOD, Department of Jainology, as the speaker. Let me begin the welcome address with a very holy mantra for Jains, Namakara Mantram, which is very holy for them. And Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vajjanam, Namo Lokaya, Sabbahunam. This I learned from not anybody, but from the speaker herself. When I was studying in MA, it was my auxiliary subject, both Christianity and this one. This is now, it is taken out of syllabus now. So I had a very good rapport with the madam, and she is a PhD in Jainism, having obtained also a diploma in Prakrit language. She is one of the authorities of the contemporary Jainism. She has been in the teaching field for the past 35 years. She has served as the director of Buddhist studies also in our university. She has organized many national seminars and workshops in Jainism and Buddhism and meditation courses. She was a part of the Interfaith Religion Delegation sponsored by the US Department of State, and she represented Jainism in many platforms in many cities in the USA. Last year, she was invited by Vatican, the Christian headquarters, to participate in the All-Women Integrated International Conference, wherein she represented Jainism. She has a rich experience, and and because of her, a lot of old and young people are able to benefit out of that. And Jainism, is a very strict religion with a lot of vows, Vrita and Mahavratam and all these things. But she has been teaching it very nicely. Hope she will continue to do the same thing now today also. I now request her to commence her speech. Thank you.
Uh, Namaskaram to one and all. Thank you, Parthasarthi sir, and thank you for the Namokar Mantra recitation and for the welcome. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I can see a familiar face in Jagannivas, sir. How are you, sir? Vanakkam, sir. Uh, Good evening, good morning to one and all. It's my proud privilege to be a part of the School of Philosophy and Religious Thought at the University of Madras, where we closely work with the departments of Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Christian studies, Islamic thought, philosophy. Uh, so I've been in the department, it's almost now 40 years. First as a student, then as a researcher, then as a guest faculty, and then as the HOD. And I'll soon retire next year. Okay, so Jainism, I think, what to say, it runs in my blood. So whatever I'm going to talk today, it will be direct from the soul, from the heart, and no makeup, no, what to say, uh, big juggernauts that I'll be using. So the topic that I chose when Parthasarthi sir extended this invitation to me is the convergences and the divergences in Jainism and Vaishnavism. So you know a lot about Vaishnavism. I may know a little about Vaishnavism. I may know a lot about Jainism. You may know a little about Jainism. That is where we start. So let us take our understanding a little forward. What we are trying to do now is an interfaith dialogue exercise. So whenever we do an interfaith dialogue, it always strengthens our faith in our faith. So you will understand Vaishnavism more clearly when you have a dialogue with other philosophical and religious traditions. Likewise, a person who is a Jain and he has a dialogue with other religions and philosophies, he may understand his religion or philosophy a little better. And I have been a part of the Interfaith Dialogue program invited by the US Department of State almost 20 years ago. So in US, interfaith dialogue is celebrated in a very big way. And in India also, the interfaith dialogue was there. Whenever we had the Khandana Mandana Parampara, the philosophies discussing and debating. So the Khandan Mandan Parampara is the interfaith dialogue parampara in India. So taking that parampara forward, I would like to focus on the convergences and divergences. That is how we stand in the uh, context and the traditional sense. So first of all, uh, a brief introduction. Jainism and Vaishnavism are two of the most important spiritual traditions of the Indian subcontinent. And I have grown up reading Meera, Sur, Tulsi, Kabir, and the Bhagavad, Dongre Maharaj's Bhagavad, the Upanishads, okay, and some portions of the Brahma Sutra, the Tikas of Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, at my BA Hindi literature level itself. That is way back in 84, 87. So before I understood Jainism, I understood the philosophical and the devotional and the spiritual ethos that our Indian subcontinent offers. So I see Jainism and Vaishnavism converging in more places and diverging in a very few places. So I will list out them very quickly. So anybody who wants to do a PhD on this topic, they can definitely explore. There's a research gap over here, which can be filled through a nice thesis. So you will get a lot of material put for thought for your research. Okay. So though they both Jainism and Vaishnavism emerge from the same metaphysical foundations, Jainism emerges from the Shramana tradition and Vaishnavism from the Vaidika tradition. They share several ethical, ritual, and liberation concerns. At the same time, their divergences are profound, especially concerning ontology. Ontology is the study of the self. Okay, the understanding of the self is different in Jainism and in Vaishnavism. Understanding. Okay, and then the topic concerning God, karma, liberation. Also, you have the divergences. So first we'll focus on the convergences. The first point related to the convergences that both the traditions accept samsara, the cycle of rebirth and liberation thereof. So both the traditions talk about liberation. One may talk about surrender, one may talk about renunciation. Why? Why? All that we will discuss. So then both the traditions accept karma, rebirth, and moksha as the moksha, or you may call it as nishreyasa or kaivalya, whatever, as the ultimate human goal. So in Vaishnavism, it could be surrender and the grace of God as the ultimate goal. That we'll see in the divergences. But moksha is the ultimate ideal, not swarga or apavarga, as is told in the Vedas. So both the systems, one's present condition is shaped by past actions. What you are today is what you uh, sowed, what your past actions led to the present karma state that you are, and whatever you do today will lead to the future births. This is what both the traditions, in a way. When I say in a way, I'm generalizing and I'm talking. Okay. And then spiritual discipline is necessary to transcend the karmic bondage. So, in one tradition, the spiritual discipline is of renunciation, of enlightenment. In another, the uh, spiritual discipline is of complete surrender to the grace of God. So, this is one major convergence that I found. The second major convergence is the importance of devotion and reverence. You see, there are thousands of Jain temples. If you go to Palitana, Shatrunjay, you have the largest temple complex in the world. More than 1,000 temples are there on one hill of Shatrunjay. So here also the devotion and reverence is very, very important. The devotion to Tirthankars, so that you get in tune with the devotion to the pure soul. Now, when I talk about pure soul, it is the Aham Brahmasmi of the Vedanta tradition and the pure soul, the Shuddhatma in Jainism. So here, devotion to Tirthankas. Tirthankas are Vitaragi. They are not going to shower their grace. But looking at them, we have to learn to look at our own self, God-like self, Brahman. So that is the nature, what is there? The devotion and reverence in Jainism. Whereas in Vaishnavism, you see reverence or devotion or surrender to Vishnu and the avatars of Vishnu, Vaishnava. So Vishnu and the avatars of Vishnu, particularly Krishna, and that is how I understand Vaishnavism. So both traditions cultivate reverential attitudes. That is the what to say, very, very important factor as far as Jainism and Vaishnavism is concerned. I would say that no religion is without God. Whether you take Shaivism, whether you take Christianity, Islam, except Charvak, everybody profess their devotion to the highest authority, and they call it by their different names. So, because of this devotion and reverence, we find the temple worship, the temple culture is common in both the traditions. Chanting, hymns, recitation of mantras, stotras, stutis. It is common in both the traditions, and sacred storytelling. You have the Bhagavad stories, and Sri Vaishnavism, you have the stories. Likewise, in Jainism, you have scores of stories, and you have the Brihat Katha Koch, encyclopedias of stories. In the Agamas, you have the stories. So the storytelling is a very important format of communicating the deep devotion and reverence to the common masses. That is why the acharyas went from place to place, singing the hymns, telling the stories, telling the people to get connected with their inner core for liberation. Next, I see that moksha is the supreme aim, and in Jainism, moksha is release from the karmic matter, whereas in Vaishnavism, it is release from samsara through divine realization, grace, and devotion. So both regard worldly attachment as the chief obstacle to liberation. So worldly attachment, and that has to be given up in both the traditions. But without the understanding of the reality, this becomes difficult. Hence, we have the concept of what to say, the anekantavada concept is very, very important because of the what to say, the complex reality, the nature of the complex reality. That is why you see that in the Brahma Sutra, Maharishi Vyas spoke about Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, and Shankaracharya interpreted it in a particular way. Ramanujacharya interpreted it in another way. And then you had Vallabhacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and so many other acharyas interpreting the complex dimensional, multi-dimensional reality in so many ways. That is why in Jainism, we have the concept of Anekantavad. Even though the other religions and philosophies don't talk about Anekantvad the way Jainism does, but in a way, you see the practice, the application of Anekantvad in Jainism very clearly. And I can see it in the interpretation of the Brahma Sutras, uh, seeing the different Acharya traditions. So it may sound to you that it is a convergence and divergence of Jainism or Hinduism that I'm talking about. I don't want to go into that. So Vaishnavism, you have the uh, understanding of reality. Likewise, in Jainism, you have the understanding of reality. And without the application of Anekantvad, your understanding of reality cannot be clear. Hence, there cannot be right faith, right knowledge, right conduct. That cannot be the pathway of liberation. So when you are not on the pathway of liberation, forget liberation. When you are not on the pathway of Delhi, how will you reach Delhi? If you don't take the pathway or the flight to US, how will you reach US? You have to have the path, and you have to have a clear understanding of the path. So in Jainism, that pathway is told through the Ratnatraya, the threefold pathway of liberation, that is right understanding of reality, right knowledge of reality, and the right conduct or experience of the reality. Or in other words, we can say ahimsa, sanyama, and tapa. Ahimsa is non-violence. When you look upon yourself, you look upon others as your own self. So ahimsa, even though ahimsa paramo dharma is written in the Mahabharata, but it is very extensively and acutely and deeply followed by the Jains. That is why you have the Jain food, which is very, very popular worldwide. And you go to any five-star hotel or flight, Jain food, you say they understand. But why Jain food? So again, I'll have to take 1 hour special lecture about Jain food. I cannot talk about the whole thing over here, the logic behind it, the philosophy behind it, and the actual practice of it. So ahimsa and ethical discipline. It's a major shared value, and both Vaishnavism and Jainism believe in it. And in Vaishnavism, we say non-violence as compassion towards all living beings, seva, daya, mercy, its application is generally less absolute and more dharma contextual than in Jainism. That is how I see it in Vaishnavism. Then the other main converging point is the ascetic and the lay path. So in both the traditions, you have sannyasis, you have the renunciates, you have the sadhus, you have the mahatmas who take to the path of renunciation. And both traditions successfully integrate monastic renunciatory ideals and then householder ethics. Even the householder is guided by a certain ethics. And then in both the traditions, you have certain niyama, certain vows, vratas, you know, nombu, and all those kind of things. And fasting. So even in Vaishnavism and Jainism, I see a common platform of fasting. And then pilgrimage. We all take yatras, we go on a pilgrimage. So temple-centered ritual cultures is common in both the Jain tradition and the Vaishnava tradition. So these are about the convergences. And now I would like to focus on the divergences. I think the divergences will be more appealing and interesting to both the traditions. Okay. So the first diverging point that I see is the understanding of reality. But before I come to that, I would like to use the smart board. One second. Oh, one second, one second. If I
Madam,
am the
voice.
co-host, I would like you all. I'm not the co-host, so I cannot use the board. Anyway, I will just send it to Parthasarthi sir, and Parthasarthi sir can send it to you all on the group. If you all can note down something, quickly take a pen and pencil and your paper. You will really enjoy what I'm telling. You can make 3 columns, and on the top write Sachidanand. Sat Chit Anand. Okay? Sat Chit Anand. And then 2 words you leave separately, that is Nama and Rupa, name and form. So Sat Chit Anand. Below Sat Chit Anand, you will write Sat as existence. Sat as existence.
You became a
Chit
typical
as,
teacher, madam.
pardon?
35 years of experience.
Pardon?
You are a typical teacher, asking
Okay.
us to write or take down.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Okay, tell me, Sat.
Okay. Sat Chit Anand is existence, consciousness, and bliss. Existence, Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, Anand is bliss. Under Sat, you will write life. Under Chit, you will write light. Under Anand, you will write love. Life, light, and love.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll repeat. Sat Chit Anand, existence, consciousness, bliss, life, light, love. Under life, you will write prana. Prana. Under light, you will write tejas. Prana, tejas, and under love, you will write ojas. Prana, tejas, ojas. Under prana, you will write air. Under tejas, you will write fire. And under ojas, you will write water. And in the last line, you will write, under air, you will write vata. Under consciousness, under fire, you will write pitta. And under water, you will write kapha. Vata, pitta, kapha. Now, if you examine this chart, I'll repeat it. Quickly, I'll repeat it. The topmost is that this is the threefold order of life. This is the heading you can give is threefold order of life. Sachidanand. And external, you have the Nama Rupa. And then Under Satchidanand, you have the existence, consciousness and bliss, life, light and love, prana, tejas, ojas, air, fire and water, and vata, pitta and kapha. So, what Jainism and Vaishnavism say is, or Vedanta, I can say Vedanta, that the Jivatma is made of Satchidanand. That is the DNA. That is the, what is the software of every Jivatma is Satchidanand, and God is also Satchidanand. Okay? But this Jivatma doesn't realize its pure nature, and whatever, because it is in a state of ignorance, in Jainism it is called as perversion, mithyatva, and in Vaishnavism you may call it as ignorance, agnana, in Vedanta. So because of this original sin, not knowing our pure nature, whatever form we get, we identify ourselves with it. And because of this identification, all the suffering and all the ignorance and all the bondage and the cycle of rebirth continues. But with the help of God, Guru, and Shastra, when we realize this pure nature, we rise above the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. We rise above the air, fire, water. We rise above Prana, Tejas, Ojas. And we identify ourselves with life, light, and love that is there in me, in you, in the microorganisms, in the macroorganisms, and in all the Jivatmas. And you look upon everybody the same way as you look upon yourself. That is when the equanimity, the samaik, the samatva bhavam, in the Bhagavad Gita they say, no, samatvam yogam uchyate. The real yoga starts. The real yoga, or the real, what to say, connectivity with the supreme nature of the Jivatma, the Paramatma, and all the Jivatma. It begins. Only then we can rise in fearlessness, we can follow ahimsa. So this is the main crux of the Jaina philosophy. All Tirthankas, they remained in Vitaraga Bhava. They remained beyond Raga Dvesha because they looked upon all the creatures as their own soul. So there is no question of grace or cursing, or they don't see all. They are the ones, I would like to say Jainism is the only religion which says that we all are God and we can rise to God. In Vaishnavism, it is surrender to God. But in Jainism, it is not the Avatara tradition in Jainism. It is the Uttaravada, the divergence I'm talking about. It is every individual has the potential to rise to the level of Godhood. That is why you have infinite arhats, infinite siddhas, the Siddhargal, and who have liberated themselves. And then you have the acharyas, upadhyayas, and the sadhus following this great path of divinity, spirituality, by remaining truly human and discovering the infinite, manifesting the infinite potential that is inherent within. Until and unless the manifestation of the inherent divinity happens, the Jivatma continues to transmigrate in the cycle of the four realms, the four gatis, the Manushya Gati, the Tiriyancha Gati, the Naraka Gati, and the Deva Gati. And the path of liberation will help one to come out of all the four. So it is not heaven or hell, the fear of hell or the pleasure of heaven that is important. It is the Ratnatre, the Mukkudai, the three jewels that is important. So Jainism, as you know, that it is a fundamentally, what to say, you may call it as a Gnostic tradition. If it is Gnostic, I'll request my humble fellow men to contemplate why so many Tirthankars, why so many temples, if it is a Gnostic tradition, if it doesn't believe in God. So Jainism is the one who believes in the pure souls as gods. So this is the unique feature of Jainism, and which has not been understood by many, many people, even by the Jains. I would say my 40 years of experience of teaching and studying and very deeply exploring Kundakunda's philosophy Even the Jains do not understand what real Jainism is all about. So they are also caught in the rituals and surrender to God and devotion to God. The Tirthankars will liberate. So this kind of uh, belief, Jainism calls it as Grahita Mithyatva. Grahita Mithyatva means the perversion that only human beings develop. Other creatures cannot have this perversion. It's only human beings who surrender, who take to this perversion by not understanding the actual message of the Bhagwan or the Tirthankars or Paramatma. Paramatma doesn't want you to surrender to him in Jainism. He wants you to discover the Paramatma latent in your Atma. Okay? Jainism, Tirthankars do not want you to surrender to them. Because if you look at the iconography of the Jain Tirthankaras, you just see a Jina image, how it is. Sitting in Padmasan, and on the left hand, you have the right hand. It is like this, near the navel, eyes semi-closed, and mouth is also closed. What is the message? The legs are on Padmasan. They're telling there is no happiness outside. Everything is within. So no need to go anywhere. Hand on hand says no need to do anything. Remain a Gyata Drashta, remain a knower and seer. So I have so many Upanishadic references to what I'm talking. The Mandukya Upanishad, and then so many Upanishads. You have the four avasthas, the Swapna, Jagrata, and Sushupta, and the fourth, the Turiya Avastha. So the Tirthankars are the ones who have gone into the Turiya Avastha and liberated themselves. And they are telling all living beings to go to that state and realize the Brahman within and seek the path of liberation above else. Because human life is very, 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 very difficult to acquire. So the eyes are semi-closed. That means the Nasagra Drishti, they are observing their own, they are remaining and observe. So know the knower, see the seer, observe the observer, experience the experiencer. This is the message that the Tirthankaras give. And I think this is also the clarion call of all the Upanishads. And I think the great acharyas, whether it is Shankaracharya or Ramanujacharya or Nimbarkacharya, so they all have also, whether it is Meera, Sur, Tulsi, Kabir, they all have sung about this great path of liberation in many, many ways. That is what is the beauty of our Indian subcontinent or our Bharatiya Jnana Parampara. So Bha means Jnana. Rat means one who is committed to the path of the great path of enlightenment, the great path of liberation. So that is how I see it. So again, the sharpest divergence here you see is Jainism doesn't believe fundamentally in a creator God. Hence, it has been branded as a non-theistic tradition, which is very, very, what to say, tragic. So because universe is beginningless and the creator is embedded in the creation, the utpada, vyaya, dravya, origination, change, and permanence coexist in the same reality, whether it is in the atom or whether it is in the pure soul or whether it is in our body. Origination, change, and permanence is dynamically, rhythmically taking place at the micro level and at the macro level. So there is no need for a separate creator. The creator is there in the, what to say, in every anu, I can say, in every anu. So Vishnu, I don't see as a person. I see it as a force. In spite of the changes and destruction and the paryay, the forms, the modifications originating, there is the Dhruv Tattva. The Dhruv Tattva is the Vishnu Tattva, which is present throughout at the time in the material state or in the liberated state. So that is how I look upon Vishnu or the Vaishnava tradition. So infinite souls, all jivas are qualitatively alike and quantitatively, ontologically real and eternal. This is the Jaina understanding of the reality. Whereas in Vaishnavism, you see, it is explicitly theistic. Vishnu, Narayana is the supreme reality, and they believe in the creator God, the sustainer, the redeemer, and the universe is dependent on the divine will. So this metaphysical difference shapes every other doctrinal distinction in Jainism and Vaishnavism. So metaphysically, you see the divergence. So what I would like to say is that uh, the Jaina and Vaishnava traditions converge in the ethics. Ahimsa, the five vratas are there in the yoga tradition. So ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha, karma, renunciation, liberation. But the divergence, the first divergence that I just now showed is in the theology, the understanding of God, then the metaphysics, epistemology, the ritual effect, and the liberation part. So here the divergences are there. So the first one I told you was about the understanding of the ultimate reality. The second one is the means of liberation. In Jainism, as I told you, the means of liberation is threefold. One path, but three aspects, three constituents. And they are right faith in the knowledge, right faith in the reality, right knowledge of the reality, and right conduct is experience of the reality. Together, they constitute the path of liberation. Besides that, you have the austere practices, fasting and sallekana, self-effort, purushartha, and karmic destruction. All these are very important in Jainism. Whereas in Vaishnavism, what is liberation? What is the understanding of liberation? So in Vaishnavism, liberation primarily depends on bhakti, surrender to God, and sharanagati, and then you have the divine grace, remembrance of God, nama japa, service to God. So that is how you see in Vaishnavism, God-centered grace and devotion is important. Whereas in Jainism, it is the self-centered, the biocentric life and Atma-centric life is more important because God is Vitaraga and Paramatma. Tirthankars have revealed that Anu is Swadhina. One dravya cannot do anything for any other dravya. We are only nimit. We are only instrumental for others. We cannot be the karta for anybody else. The karta and bhokta exist in the same reality. They cannot exist in two places. Okay, like the milk is the karta for the curd. There cannot be the lady who is planting the yogurt in the milk is only a nimit, is only an instrumental agency. Likewise, no teacher can awaken you or awaken the jivatma until and unless the jivatma is ready for it. So the Tirthankars have shown the way. It is up to the jivatma to understand the way and progress on it. So again, coming to the second point, the concept of soul is understanding is different in Jainism and Vaishnavism. Jainism says the soul is independent, it is eternal, it is potentially divine and capable of becoming a siddha. That's why you have infinite arhats and infinite siddhas. Whereas in Vaishnavism, the soul is eternal, distinct yet dependent on God. That is why you have the different traditions like the Jivatma and the Paramatma are same. One says it is a part and parcel of God, and you have Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, different understanding of the relation between God and uh, Jiva. So both often understood as a part or mode of the divine and fulfilled through loving relation with God. Liberation in Vaishnavism is a fulfillment through loving relation with God, with Paramatma, with the avatars of Vishnu, etc. So Jain liberation is ontological isolation in purity, whereas in Vaishnavism, liberation is relational union or eternal service to God. So Sharanagati is important in Vaishnavism, and in Jainism you have Chattari saranam pavajjami, arhante saranam pavajjami, siddhe saranam pavajjami, sahu saranam pavajjami, and above all, kevali pannattam dhammam saranam pavajjami. I seek refuge in the arhats, in the siddhas, in the sadhus, and in the path preached by these three of them. Kevali, omniscient. The path preached by the omniscience. Okay. So coming to the next divergence is the ritual orientation. Jainism emphasizes, I will talk to you later. Yes. Thank you. Jainism, the ritual orientation in Jainism emphasizes purification of the self, repentance. You have pratikraman, you have prayashchita, then fasting, austerities with right understanding, right knowledge. But many Jains take to fasting, but the right understanding of the complex reality, if it is missing, then they are also not on the path of liberation. Okay. And then you have the reverence to the perfected beings. All these is important in Jainism. When you come to Vaishnavism, the rituals emphasize the pujas, the different kinds of pujas, vidhans, arati, kirtana, prashada, mantras, festivals, and you have the leela of Paramatma, remembering Paramatma throughout. So the effective devotional element is much more central in Vaishnavism, whereas in Jainism, it is devotion coupled with right understanding and renunciation that is a part of the pathway of liberation. So Anekantvad as an exclusive uh, Anekantvad. Now the next point of divergence that I would like to talk is Anekantvad versus extensive devotional absolutism. Jainism says anekanta. What is the meaning of the word anekanta? Unekanta, that which is not one-sided, multi-dimensional, because reality is complex. And then aneka anta. Anta means characteristics, qualities, guna, dharma. Aneka means many. The vastu, the substance, whether it is atma or paramatma or anu or brahmanda, it's a complex reality. So you have to have a multi-dimensional approach and not a one-sided approach to understand the reality. So anekantavada, syadvada. Syad means relatively talking about things. Like you are a father and a son, but relatively. With respect to your father, you are a son. With respect to your son, you are a father. So with respect to, relatively, is the word for syad. Syad is the word for these two. It is not shayad. It is not perhaps. It is not maybe. It is relatively. So Syadvad is a very important, without, yes, I would say Syadvad is a signature statement of the Tirthankaras. So if you remove the Syadvad and blindly follow the Tirthankaras, then you are not a true Jain. So plurality of viewpoints, perspective of truth is more important than the actual practice. And in Vaishnava theology, especially in the sectarian schools, you have the strong doctrinal certainty. The reality is like this: doctrinal certainty, exclusive theological commitment to one supreme deity, revelation based truth claims. So here you see that the Jain thought is a more philosophical, pluralistic tone it has, whereas Vaishnavism often develops a more devotional absolutism. So that is how I see the divergence as far as Anekantvad and devotional absolutism is concerned. So if we have this devotion is a great thing. But if it is absolutism, then we will develop raga dvesha. You will have raga and you'll have dvesh for the others. So we cannot rise in vitaragata. We cannot rise in detachment and enlightenment. So coming to the last point, philosophical insight, where shared civilization ethos, different spiritual grammars. So this is the last point. So a refined way to understand them is that Jainism spiritualizes the ethics. Without the spiritual understanding of the core reality, the self, the Atma, ethics cannot lead you to liberation. So the spiritual understanding, the philosophical understanding, the metaphysical understanding should precede the ethics. That is the foundation of Jain philosophy. Whereas Vaishnavism, I see, it spiritualizes devotion. So when you take the Satchidananda Swarup, the Aham Brahmasmi, that is a spiritual path. But without devotion to that spiritual path, you cannot be a true Vaishnava. So Jainism seeks liberation through radical self-discipline and ontological purification, whereas Vaishnavism seeks liberation through surrender to the divine personality of God. So I've told you about that they converge, coming to the concluding part, they converge beautiful traditions, whether it is Jainism or Vaishnavism, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Uh, uh, then you have Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Then you have Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. And in Jainism, you have Appa So Paramappa. Atman is Paramatman. Then in the Upanishads, you have Tattvam Asi. Thou art that. In Buddhism, you have Atma Deepo Bhava, Appa Devo Bhava. Be a light unto yourself. So all these clarion calls of the great traditions, whether we call it as Jainism or Vaishnavism or Buddhism, they are not just a handful of practices and beliefs. They're something much, much, much more than that. So we need to have a researcher's eye to discover them and come on the path of liberation. Otherwise, a great human birth that we have got will be lost. And as the famous poet in the poem Rock, he says, where is the knowledge lost in information? Where is the wisdom lost in all the knowledge? So from dust we come, and to dust we all will return if we do not rise in enlightenment. And I see these two great traditions telling us to come closer to reality, to come closer to the self and liberation. Thank you for the opportunity. I really love preparing for this talk, and I'll take up a few questions and I will detach by 8:05 or so. Thank you, Parthasarathy sir. Thank you all for your patient listening.
Thank you very much, madam. It's a nice presentation. As I told you, you have become a typical teacher in this hall, and you have made us all right work also. Now I request Mr. Madanagopal Rangarajan to propose the vote of thanks. And now we will have discussion for 10 minutes, as you wanted. Anybody asking any question on Jainism or Vaishnavism are free to ask now. Any doubt on the lecture?
Yeah, as I observed whatever Madam said, I find that in a very deeper sense, if we go into that, there is a merge and convergence more
sound,
than that.
madam.
Huh? Oh, there is a, 1 second.
Yeah, it is better.
Now, okay.
Hello.
All these and
I see both Vaishnavism student as well as the Jain students are here. Anybody can ask, no problem.
there
Madam, you kind of you're breaking your cell phone is not probably.
Yes, sir. Hello.
I think it's so. Ma'am, this is Rangarajan here. I think we have the Jagannivas sir, who's actually PhD in karma. Okay, so now as I understand from your thing, the karma determines your birth through the 4 stages and for different forms and all that. Okay, in some sense, who administers this karma according to Jain? I mean, it's I hope you get the question. I mean, in we have see I think just as a point, much more than the God and no God, I think the Gnostic definition, which is I think it's again a definition, academic definition which is given, is the belief in Vedas or not belief in Vedas. Vedas as the authority. Okay. And here the Vedas and the Shastras have the very clear definition of karma and others. Since that is not there, how is the karma thing administered through births, according to Jainism?
I got your question, sir. Am I audible? Yeah. First of all, uh, in one line, if I can say, and with one example, I would like to say that it's a natural process. It's an automatic, natural process, and you don't need the intermediate agency of a god to administer the karmic law. For example, the food you eat, you or we eat, it naturally gets converted into the saptadhatu. It gets converted into rasa, rakta, mamsa, meda, asti, majja, and virya. It's a natural process. Okay. When you sow a seed, it naturally sprouts into a root and a shoot. It's a natural process. So likewise, Jainism says that the karmic law works automatically. It doesn't have, it is jada. It is jada. It has no knowledge and it has no sharam. It will not see whether you are ready for it or not. Whatever karma we bind, and you have the 10 processes of karma. Bandha, Udaya, Udirna, Satta, Sankramana, and all that. And you have 148 divisions of the karma. And each one you have to understand in relation to the spiritual aspect. So karma theory is not told in Jainism to scare you or to blindly follow things, but to understand that corresponding to the karma, you have the spiritual qualities. For example, the first karma is the Jnana Varniya karma, knowledge obscuring karma. So what does it say? It says that there is infinite knowledge in the soul. But when you don't understand the nature of the soul, the Jnana Varniya karma is operating. And why it is operating? Because of the Mohaniya karma, the delusion producing karma. We are in a deluded state, the Maya, the illusion state. So we are not understanding the reality. So that is how the Mohaniya karma is operating. So karma is not just to see, to understand the soul, you have to understand the Adhyatma. And to justify the variety that is there in the material world, the Jainas give the karma theory. And this very fine karmic matter cannot be seen under the microscope or under anything. It is the omniscients who have seen in their knowledge and they have revealed it. You cannot verify them. You can only infer them. You can only infer their working, but you cannot physically, you cannot verify them. Because the karmic matter is very fine matter, which only an omniscient can see in his transcendental knowledge. And we have hell a lot of karmic literature. So 148 divisions are there. I remember my Vaishnava students telling me, Madam, Jainism padiknona nariya memory venu, madam. Divisions kulla divisions, divisions kulla divisions, divisions kulla divisions. So anulendu Brahmand varko karma divisions ninga pakala. You have the divisions of time, you have the divisions of the Kala Chakra, you have the divisions of three loka, and all this has been revealed by the omniscient Tirthankaras. So for us, the Tirthankara's words are the last word. And Vedas, they say, is apaurushaya. So for us in Jainism, the omniscient words are the final words. So they reject the authority of all other texts. And even if I understand Jainism, but if I don't understand the multidimensional reality that is coded in the Jaina logic, then I'm not a true Jain at all. I may be following some rituals and believing myself to be a Jain. That is my understanding after 40 years of study of Jainism. And karma theory, before coming to the department, I had memorized the entire karma theory. But my understanding of karma theory was different before reading Kunda Kunda and after reading Kunda Kunda. I will strongly recommend that all of you please call me again for a lecture on Samayasar. I will tell you how to study the Samayasar and how to look at the karma theory through the lens of spirituality. So Samayasar is a great text, and we have published Kunda Kunda's literature from our department and the Tattvartha Sutra. So I would like to again come to you if you all want to listen, not otherwise. Thank you.
Thanks, madam.
Is there any, madam, is
Yes,
there
sir.
any difference between the Jainism in North India and the Samana of South India?
நல்ல கேள்வி கேட்டீங்க sir. First of all, the North Indian Jainism, if you see, is predominantly Shwetambar. Whereas South Indian Jainism, you see, it is predominantly Digambar. All the Tirthankars were born in North India, but the prominent acharyas from Kunda Kunda to Pujyapada to Samantabhadra and Jinasena, they all were born in South India, Akalanka and all of them. So, in the North Indian Jainism, you see the influence of the Vedic tradition. If you go to a North Indian Jain house, you will see all the Devi Devtas. My mother's house, if you go, you'll have Shiva, you'll have Ganesha, you'll have Lakshmi, you'll have Parvati, you'll have Saraswati, you'll have the Tirthankaras, you'll have everybody. But if you come to my house, you will find only the Vitaraga Pratima. Because of extensive research, I've come to understand that the Digambar tradition is more true to the original Jain traditions when compared to the Shwetambar tradition. So there's a lot of cross-cultural influences on the Shwetambar tradition. A lot of dilutions have taken place. A lot of distortions are there. Even the Shwetambars don't know the real Jainism, and the Digambars don't know that the Shwetambars don't know the real Jainism. So all kinds of things are there. So this is how I see the differences. So the Shwetambars in the north will be taking to a lot of rituals, whereas the Digambars will be taking to the Swadhyaya, discovering the reality through the scriptural study. And of course, you have the sectarian divisions are there in the Digambars and Shwetambars. But North India, primarily, you have Gujarat, Rajasthan, the Shwetambars. Whereas you come to Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, it is the Digambars who are the indigenous people of Tamil Nadu. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I ask one more question, ma'am? Ma'am, this is
Yes,
more a
sir.
Laukika question. I mean, I used to study and we used to cross your class and see your lectures from outside. Okay. So in Vaishnavism, if you look at it, I was probably in late 50s when I did, and I was one of the youngest in the class. Okay.
Mhm.
All are typically elder. Whereas in your class, I used to see all young people and a lot of them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the secret, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What
Very nice.
attracts younger people to come and study philosophy here? Whereas here,
Yes.
all of us almost on the verge of retirement or after retirement, we come. Of course, this is
Bachelor's
not nothing to do.
environment, it is always separate 60 plus or
I know.
50 plus minimum.
I know.
In Jain
So,
department,
Yes,
we
sir.
can see a lot of young,
almost so many
particularly
young people.
ladies. And
Yeah.
all gents are busy with the business, and all ladies are attending these classes.
Yeah, but definitely a lot of youngsters I used to see. And this question I always had, but you are here, I could probably ask you.
Okay, sir. Wonderful. Thank you, sir, for this question. First of all, these days now the demography is changing, and the girls also want to go for jobs and be entrepreneurs. So it is very difficult even to get them these days. But still, now we are having around 24 students in the department, and most of them are youngsters. They are working also and they are studying also. So they study in the day and they work in the evenings, and they try to balance both. So what is this thing is, I would like to say you must have observed that there are a lot of youngsters in Jainism who take to Diksha. Young boys and girls,
I've
they
read
are
that.
all born in rich families. They take to Diksha at a very early age. So what they believe is that once you understand the reality and you commit to it, surrender to it, it becomes easy. But once you have entered into family life and then to come out of it becomes very difficult. So you see the youngsters taking to Diksha, and after they understand the ephemeral nature of the material world and ephemeral nature of all the material wealth, when they understand the loftiness of the spiritual wealth and the importance of renunciation and austere practices, they very easily surrender. One thing. Second thing is, you see in the Jain tradition, the monks and nuns, there are around 15 to 18,000 monks and nuns who walk barefoot the length and breadth of India, preaching the holy philosophy of the Jainas. So when the Jain monks and nuns move, the Jain lay men and women and youngsters and householders, they come in contact with them and they want to explore and study Jainism. So they come and study over here. There are many people who come and tell me, Madam, like the great granddaughter of Professor A. Chakravarti, Neelakeshi. She was our student. She was 50, 60 plus, a retired government official. When she came to study, she told her that I knew only the Namokar mantra. I didn't know anything else. And today she's finished her MA, then MPhil, then PhD, and she goes globetrotting, giving lectures on Jainism. So both kind of scenario you have. We have retired government officials, but very difficult to get hold of these Jain businessmen because there is no retirement age for them. And they go to the Jain monks and nuns, they go to the temple, they go for the pilgrimage, and they think they know Jainism. Very dangerous situation, sir. Most of them are heading lot of trusts. They are trustees, but they are not Jain Shravaka to the core. Out of 100 trusts, maybe a few trustees know the philosophical aspect of Jainism. Otherwise, so even they are blindly following Jainism. This is my humble understanding, sir. I may be wrong, but it's very. See, if you're a trustee and you understand Jainism, then you should regularly do your swadhyay and you should understand the philosophical aspect of Jainism. But the Jain business people, the youngsters are doing it. The retired government officials are doing it. The housewives are doing it. But the Jain businessmen, I rarely see them studying Jainism as I see the Vaishnavites studying Vaishnavism.
I mean, no, I don't know. I'm not very sure, madam. I mean, even our thing, many of them retire and see IPL only. So it's not very different. But thanks for the clarification.
Okay, sir.
So
Any other
men
questions?
learn and women learn. Is it correct? Men learn and women learn.
Yes, the Jain women are more aware than the men folk. They take to their fasting, the rituals, the
Yes.
studies, the seva, the swadhyay, the mandala. The women are very highly active. On 10th May, we are having one exhibition, and nearly 10,000 people are expected to come, and most of them will be Jain women entrepreneurs. So the
Oh,
Jain business people are encouraging the women folk to be entrepreneurs. I'm going to be there to inspire them to be true Jains studying the philosophy of Bhagwan.
Excellent.
good.
Okay, sir. I would like to
Yeah.
take your
Okay.
leave.
Yeah, so
I would like to
before
take
you
your
leave,
leave.
just formally, I mean, I know we've interacted.
No
We would
need,
like
sir.
to
No need
we,
for the
we,
vote
we
of
would like
thanks.
we would like to thank you for an excellent academic session. I think we aspire to do more than sampradaya, the academic thing, which will make you think, which will give you some new information or knowledge or a perspective. So from that aspect, it's been a top class academic session. We really thank you so much. I mean, you are a neighbor so much, but I think it's taken you so much time to come to our association. I hope to see you in another form and another debate and sometime. So we like to thank you, and we'd like to thank all the people who are joined and who will be also watching this. Most of the time they watch in the YouTube channels. We have a very high traffic. I hope they benefit from that. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes. One last thing I would like to say is, whether we are Jains or Vaishnavas or anybody, let us try to chart out something and work for 3 T's: humanity, spirituality, and divinity. This is what I try to follow. And
Absolutely, madam. Absolutely. Thank you,
you,
madam.
sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Partha Sarthi, sir, for
Thank you,
having